Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So I had the video or the camera out to show off the new liner locks I'm making. And so I had a subscriber ask me to do a video on, I think it was sharpening kitchen knives, and it just so happened that it's about time for me to sharpen up my kitchen knives, and so I figured, you know what, while I had the camera out, we'd go ahead and do that. So first of all, setting up to do some sharpening today, I am out in the shop. I mean, you can do this at your kitchen counter if you want to. I'm going to use some oil stones. We have got the new jumbo Norton Jum 4, made in Mexico, crystalline coarse, or this is the fine, this is the coarse side, ginormous stone. We're going to use it and some mineral oil. So the first thing I like to do is take one of these shop towels, or you could use a regular old Scott towel or something, but get a little bit wet. This is a trick that I learned back in the days when I was working offshore as a ship's engineer. So anyway, so wet your paper towel. We need a little bit more. If you wet the towel, it will grip the table. So like when we were out there, you'd always tell the new guys, they would go grab their plates and sit down in the galley at the table when we were having some rough weather, and their plates would be sliding back and forth if they weren't grabbing a hold of them and holding them. So what you did was you just grab a paper towel, pour a little bit of your drinking water on it to get it wet, and then set your plate on it, and the thing wouldn't slide around quite so easy anymore. So anyway, so we got one underneath. This is just the lid off of the coarse Arkansas stone that we're going to use here. I'll show it here in a little bit. So we're going to start off with the coarse side, and that lid is just to get my hands up off the bench a little bit. We got another rag here for wiping stuff off. We got my normal brick that I use to put the stones on over here to the side so that we can put the camera on so that you can see it. So we're going to do Norton crystalline coarse, followed by the Norton crystalline fine, and then we are going to finish on this gorgeous soft arc from Natural Whetstone Company. Really nice one, 10 by 3 by 1, something like that. It gives about a I don't know, about a 600-ish grit finish, something like that. I've got it lapped with 220 powder. I think the next time I lap it though, I'm just going to lap it with my 60-90 grit sick, and then just kind of let it, it'll be a little bit on the coarse side to start with, and then you know, just let it wear in as it wears until it's ready to go again. The Norton crystalline coarse side, I want to say, is about 180-ish grit, 120-ish grit, somewhere around there. So you use this side to get things back into shape. The fine side is going to be about a 320, and then, like I said, we're going to try out that Arkansas soft. So for the knives that we've got, this particular video is just going to be on paring knives. So these are the paring knives that came out of my kitchen. We use paring knives not only for, you know, cooking uses like paring or peeling an apple, or, you know, cutting up carrots over a pot or something like that, but we also use them as steak knives. Oh, there's a Kershaw chill that I need to sharpen up also. So we use them as, you know, table knives also. So these knives right here, they get beat up a lot, especially these ones right here. This one's a new one to the kitchen. You know, they cut on plates. They you know, guests use them, and I mean, they get beat up really bad. These ones right here are mine. These were a couple of the first pairs I ever made out of 1095, one out of 440C, one out of that one's a 1095 also. I usually keep the screw up. So like on this one right here, see how that's round and that isn't? I ground into the head of that Corby bolt, so you know it goes into my kitchen. This is 1095, one of the first hollow grinds that I ever did. Yeah, you can see the plunge line is way over there instead of where it should be. This one here I ground into the Corby bolt. This one's probably the one that I use the most. It'll probably just need a touch-up. So we've got everything from light touch-ups here all the way down to, you know, we're going to have to grind in a whole new edge. And then this one, I can't remember where this one came from. Maybe somebody gave it to me, or I found it on the side of the road or something or other. Who knows? So anyway, so we will start off with, yeah, the viewer asked me to do a sharpening video on kitchen knives, not only putting edges on them, but then also, you know, my thoughts while I'm sharpening it, which I guess is a good idea. So let's take this one right here, for example. This one is Chicago Cutlery, some sort of a stainless steel. It doesn't say what's on there. This was the first set of knives that my wife and I got together when she moved in with me, and that's been 20 years ago, no, 19 years ago, something like that. So these knives have seen quite a bit of use, and what I'm going to do now, this one is reflecting light really bad up around the, from here up, and what that's from is cutting on a plate, you know, to cut steak, or if I was cooking maybe some really tough chicken or something like that. So we're going to have to grind in a whole new edge on this. So this one we are going to bring to a burr on one side, then move the burr to the other side on the coarse side, and then I'll probably grab one of mine, do that on the coarse side, and then we'll switch to fines, and then we'll go ahead and go to the soft arc, and that way you don't have to watch me for an entire hour sharpening up all these knives. So anyway, so I gotta bring you down so you can see. So, you know, the basics of sharpening, you know, you lay the blade flat on the stone, and then you raise it up until you can kind of sort of feel the edge bevel, if you can. This one's been a while since it's been sharpened. And you go ahead and with, you know, you can go heavy pressure on the coarse side, because all we're doing is removing metal. And this is some really soft stainless, plus this is a really coarse stone. So it goes pretty quick. Now, the right angle. The right angle is something that you kind of have to work out between you and your intended use and the knife. Alright? So, and this is something that I kind of have a problem with when I'm sharpening factory knives, okay? Because the harder and the finer grain the steel is, the lower the edge angle that steel will hold and maintain a good working edge, okay? So since I work mostly with my knives, you know, they'll hold much narrower edge angles than what these will. We just still got a little bit up at the point here. Oh, still reflecting a little bit of light. There we go, the light's gone. Okay. So you should be able to see where all those fresh, very coarse grit grind marks are on that edge. So that one right there for the coarse side is done. But we're going to bring you over here so that you can see. Let's get that rag out of the way. Actually, we'll grab another one right quick. So this is the same type of knife. And there's flat, there's up a little bit. This is, well, I'll explain this here on the paring knives, but then I was also going to go ahead and do it with some chef's knives also, maybe tomorrow, so that, and it'll be easier on a chef's knife because it's a much wider blade, so you can see the angle difference quite a bit easier. So anyway, so this is flat right here, right? On this type of factory knife, with this 440C stainless, and just from using these knives, I know that my right edge angle is going to be, let's see, where are you? Alright, you can see, so now I'll just put it by feel. About like that. Okay? That's a pretty steep edge angle. Alright? Generally speaking, I say that if you aren't scratching the finish, let's put it down here. If you aren't scratching the finish on your knife, then you could get lower. See how there this bevel is pretty wide? That's because I've dropped this edge angle considerably from the way it was when it was at the factory. That one's probably more indicative of what you get from, you know, right out of the package. They're pretty narrow edge bevels right out of the package, right? Because it's a little bit softer steel. It won't hold near as fine of an edge angle as what a good, you know, good 1095 or a well heat treated 440C or anything like that will. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're bad knives. I mean, you know, these knives right here, I mean, I think, well, granted, 20 years ago with inflation and everything, I mean, these knives probably cost us $3 each, and we're still using them 20 years later, and you know, they work. You know, I mean, they, yeah, they take more pressure to cut with, and they're not quite as nice, and the ergonomics aren't quite there and everything. But, you know, I mean, as long as you keep them sharp, you know, even a relatively inexpensive knife like this out of, you know, questionable quality steel, you know, still does okay in the kitchen. So anyway, so let's grab. This one's got a pretty wide blade. See how narrow the edge angles are on that one compared to this one right here? There. Now that light's reflecting kind of weird, but my 1095 one there, the edge bevels are, oh, I don't know, 0.010 of an inch wide maybe. And on the Chicago Cutlery, they're, I'd say 100 thousandths wide, something like that. So this one's got 10 times smaller of an edge bevel than this one does. But it will hold it, okay? So this one, I'll bring you back up here. Trying not to get oil off my hands all over the camera. Alright, so that right there is flat. I'm going to come up here. Now this one will hold about like that. That's about the edge angle that I'm going to want on this one. You can see how much shallower of an angle that is versus this. Now that one was already done, but that's okay. And see, that's already starting to raise a burr. This is a really good stone. Picked it up from sharpeningsupplies.com. I want to say it was only, I don't know, 50 bucks. Okay, so now we got a burr all along that side. So now we flip it to this side. And we got the burr all the way back to that side. This is 1095 with a triple edge quench in canola oil after thermal cycling to reduce the grain size. And this steel right here is 1095 at a Rockwell hardness of about 61, 62. And you saw how fast that Norton crystalline cut it. I mean, you would expect that crystalline to cut, you know, this much softer stainless, but it'll cut, you know, good high hardness 1095 just as well as it'll cut that softer stainless. So anyway, so let's go ahead, flip our stone over, throw some more mineral oil on it. A little bit more. Kind of rub it around some. Okay, so we got all our shaping done on the coarse side, right? So these edges have been shaped. You know, we brought it to a burr on this side. We swapped it over. We honed this or sharpened this side until the burr moved over to this side. Now what we got to do is we got to refine the shaping process, right? This is like I said, 120, 180 grit, somewhere around in there. This is going to be a 320 grit, the fine side is, right? So we need to take all those 180 grit scratches and bring them to 320 grit scratches. All right. So let's see. The burr is on this side right now. I can feel it with my fingertip. So we'll go ahead and go to that side. Remember, higher edge angle for softer steel. And this nice big stone has got a lot of real estate. So see how long those strokes are? Or can you? Yeah, that stone's so big you can't even see the whole thing. There you go. That is a lot of stroke right there, doing an awful lot of sharpening. And see how I'm raising the point, or raising the handle to get the point at the end? Okay, so now that burr is moved over. Yeah, with these softer steels, a lot of times I'll have a hard time. I'll be sitting there sharpening, and without even thinking about it, I'll drop to a lower edge angle, and it'll take forever to get it there. You know, because now you're cutting away more steel. Okay, so now those scratches are now at a 320 grit. Okay, so that knife is done. This knife right here, the burr, I can feel it on my fingertips here. So now we go to a lower edge angle. This is why I usually sharpen knives in batches. So like, you know, when I shut the camera off, when I'm done talking to y'all, and I just want to go ahead and go back and finish sharpening these, I'll sharpen all the stainless ones first, or all the factory ones first. Then once I'm done with all the factory ones, then I'll go ahead and come back and do the mine, because you know the edge angles are so different, and then that way my hand kind of gets into a rhythm for, what is that, 4, 5, 6, 7 more of those factory knives. It gets into a rhythm, and then I don't have to think quite so much about holding the right angle. I mean, holding the angle that's different than what I'm used to. So now we're moving the burr over to the other side. Okay, our burr's moved over a little bit up in there. And the point on that one, let's get just the very little point. There we go. You want that point. You want that point to be picking up your fingerprints. This one could be a little bit better, but we still got another stone left to go. But it's starting to grab them. Anyway, so there's 2 of them. Now we'll take this stone, kind of move it off to the side, and we'll grab this gorgeous little arc. That 12-118 was when I purchased it and when I lapped it, I believe. And we're just going to throw some mineral oil on that one too. Okay, so now let's go back to the stainless one. Now, I can feel that burr, but that burr is much finer than what it was on the coarse side. So this time it'll get much, much finer. All right. So now we start really lightening up our pressure. And we'll just do 10 strokes. How's that? 10 sounds like a good number. Alright, now that burr's moved over and it's much, much, much finer. Alright, now the burr's there, but I can barely feel it. I mean, it's nice and light. So now what we need to do is really refine that burr and weaken it. So maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 strokes on each side. Just to kind of get that burr real nice and refined and ready to shear it off. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and do 1 stroke each way. Now, what I can feel with my fingertips is that I'm feeling burr and then not feeling burr on both sides. And it is very small, okay? So, to give you an indication of how small it is, if you were to take a hair off your head and then put it on your fingertip, and then take the other finger and then kind of put some pressure on it, you'll feel about how thick that hair is, right? Okay, this is, I don't know, it'd be a fine hair. Yeah, a very fine head hair. If that, okay? So we're just gonna, now we're gonna do alternating strokes and really lighten the pressure up to where this stone is just barely cutting. Yep, okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to shear, no, this is, we'll show you shearing the burr with the 1095, and on this one, I'm going to show you knocking the burr off, like the way that Murray Carter does it. So, a lot of times these softer stainless steels, the burrs will be kind of stubborn. They'll want to bend back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and just never, you know, get sheared completely off. So a lot of times what you can do is take a sort of a clean piece of wood and really lightly run the edge over that wood a couple of times. And then feel for your burr. We got a little bit of one up towards the point. Other than that, it's all gone. Okay, that's how easy deburring a knife is. I mean, everybody makes deburring a knife sound like it's really complicated, or you know, and it's not. So now we knock that burr off with that wood, right? But what that does is it leaves kind of a jagged edge where the burr was torn off of the body of the edge. So since that's Murray Carter's method, we'll finish out with his method, and that is stone stropping. Okay, so you go to your sharpening angle. Remember, this is flat. That right there is about the sharpening angle. Now just strop 2 times at that sharpening angle on each side. Okay. So now you'll probably want to see if it's sharp or not. So let's put you up here. Oh, there it goes. Yep. I mean, it's not the best edge in the world, you know, but I don't know. Can you see all that arm hair on there? No, you probably can. Remember, I'm looking through a screen that's about 1.5 inches wide and 1 inch tall. Okay, so there's one down. Now on this one's one of my 1095. We're going to do roughly the same thing, but we're going to finish different. Okay? Remember, this is a much harder, finer grained steel, so we can go a much lower edge angle. Okay, so if that is flat, and that is where we were, no, probably about like that on the Chicago cutlery, this is going to be about where we want to be with this steel. All right. So we'll go ahead and move the burr over. Yeah, absolutely drives me nuts watching other sharpening videos, especially the natural stones. And I won't name any names or anything, but there's a whole bunch of guys out there, mostly hobbyists, that will use, you know, these old school Arkansas stones, or you know, whatever they have, and you'll see those guys holding huge edge angles. Edge angles that, I mean, you know, are just ungodly. So, no, that one's a narrow blade. So let's take this wide blade, and it's yellow, so it'll be real easy to see, right? So this knife right here is, oh, it's relatively thin. Oh, probably 15 thousandths of an inch after the edge. With the coating, maybe more like 20 thousandths, something like that. But you'll see this guy, I mean, if you're sharpening it from the factory and you want to maintain the original edge angles, then yeah, sure. You know, I mean, this one right here, there's flat. Right about there is the factory edge angle, okay? But you'll see some dude that's sitting here and he'll be sharpening it, so flat, factory edge angle, about where I'd be. And then you'll see this guy coming in, he's holding the knife up, clear up like that. Well, I mean, I can kind of understand that, sort of. I mean, if you don't know any better, or if you're really scared of scratching your knife, you know, but you can't tell me that an edge angle put on like this is going to cut better than an edge angle put on like this. And certainly neither one of them is going to cut like this. I mean, geometry is kind of where it's at. I mean, you can argue steel types and heat treats and, you know, edge finishes and all that kind of stuff. But really, when it comes right down to it, really, when it comes right down to it, if you have an edge that looks like this, like a cold chisel, right? I mean, a piece of steel that's hardened, and you hit it with a hammer to cut steel, all right? Heck, even my cutoff hardies. Even my cutoff hardies, you know, that I put in the anvil that I used. I mean, I put a hot piece of steel over this and then whack it with a hammer, and it will cut through a 1-inch thick bar of steel just as easy as can be. See that edge angle? Okay? I mean, if you get anywhere close to this with a pocket knife or a kitchen knife or anything, it doesn't even matter if it's sharp or not. You got to force all that steel through whatever it is that you're cutting. You might as well just, you know, grab a hacksaw and lay into it with that. You know, you should be, I don't even know how to tell you, but if this is, you know, 30, 45 degrees, you know, try 20. If the knife holds up there, try 15. If the knife holds up there, try 10. If the knife starts giving you a little bit of damage at 10, but it didn't at 15, I mean, thereabouts, give or take a couple of degrees, then try to cut that in half a little bit, you know. Lower edge angles always cut better. That's just the way it is, you know. I mean, it's, you're forcing a wedge through material, okay? The thinner the wedge, the easier it goes through the material. The easier it goes through the material, generally speaking, the less force is put on the very edge, and the longer the edge will last. All right? So when you see somebody out there and he's sharpening at an angle like this, just stop and think about that before you do it to your own. Okay. Where were we on this one? I'm not really feeling much of a burr, so he must have cleaned it up pretty good. And of course, I went a couple of strokes too high there, thinking about those, you know, that factory steel. Okay, so we got our burr weakened up pretty good. Now we're going to shear it. Okay, so here we are going to go Here's flat. Here's our sharpening angle. Now we're going to go up a little bit more just to shear the burr off and to create a micro bevel. Okay, so with very, very little pressure, I mean, we're talking the weight of this blade, which this blade doesn't weigh much. Very lightly, 2 or 3 strokes each side. Feel for a burr. There is no burr. Oh, a little bit up there towards the point. Okay. Now we got to do the mandatory taking arm hair off. There we go. That's popping them. I tell you, good, well-treated 1095 is pretty tough to beat. You can probably see all that hair on my thumb. That's as easy as it is. Okay, so big takeaways from this video, besides just sharpening up some knives because somebody asked me to show it. The harder and finer grain your steel is, okay, the lower the edge angle that you can hold. The softer the steel, the higher the edge angle that you'll need to put on there for the edge to support it. Okay. The easiest way, now like I said, I've been using this knife for 20 years now. Okay, so I know it pretty well. The easiest way to find that out is to take the edge that's on there from the factory and match it. Okay, put your blade flat on the stone and then raise it up until you feel that edge bevel. You'll be able to feel it, and then try to maintain that angle throughout your strokes. Okay. Once you get the knife sharp, go ahead and put it in your kitchen and use it until it, like you normally would, and use it until it goes dull. Think to yourself, okay, well, could I go a little bit lower? Did you dull the knife, or did you damage the edge, you know, cutting on a plate or something like that? If you think that you can go a little bit lower, then go ahead and drop it 5-10 degrees. You know, your edge bevel will widen out. You'll be able to see what you're doing real easy. And then get it sharp, and then put it back in your kitchen and use it some more. Once it goes dull, think, hey, can I get another 5 degrees lower out of it? For every degree that you drop your edge angle, your cutting performance is going to go up significantly. Okay? Now, the difference between 30 degrees and 20 degrees is going to be huge. Difference between 20 degrees and 15 degrees, you'll be able to tell, but the knife will let you know when you get to that, when it gets too low that the steel can't support that edge. Once you get there, just bring it back up a couple of degrees more and you should be good to go. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and shut you guys off and then finish sharpening these knives up and wash them up, put them back in the kitchen. They ought to be good to go for another couple of months. Hope you all enjoyed the video. The subscriber that asked, I hope you enjoyed the video especially and that you got what you needed out of it. If you didn't, drop me another comment and I'll maybe I'll get that one when I do. I'll go ahead and do another video on, there'll be at least one more. Now whether it's utilities, boning knives, and chef's knives, or if I do chef's knives and then boning knives and utility knives. It'll be kind of the same thing, just with different knives and wider knives so that you can see the difference. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.